Students and former students take over a Tucson Unified School District school board meeting. So how does that happen? Well, stay with me for the next 7 or 8 minutes as we try to tell at least a little bit of the story of Raza Studies at TUSD.
No, when we first saw this, we saw it as a small problem with a few teachers and a few classes, and realized that this entire section of the district had been carved out merely to serve social justice.
That's Loretta Hunnicutt, a former community organizer and liberal Democrat who was passionate about helping underserved kids. Lori, her husband, and some other educators started Tucsonans United for Sound Districts last year, hoping to recruit good candidates for school board and educate the public about what's going on at the Tucson School District. After November's election, things took a turn. They were asked by a school board member to look into Mexican American studies, that something wasn't quite right.
I contacted the district official and said, I hope you protect ethnic studies. He wrote me back and he said, you don't know what you're talking about. Can I talk to you about this program? We think we have some problems.
That turned out to be an understatement. It was a process, but eventually the group began to see that Raza Studies, now known as Mexican American Studies, was a serious problem at TUSD as it's being taught, and was being aided by a professor at the University of Arizona.
We were sitting in a school board meeting. Our friend is a friend of ours is on the school board, and the kids were putting on a demonstration, and they were being led by a professor over at the U of A who has a great deal of economic interest in this program succeeding. And he was in the back of the room handing out speeches to each of the children. And if they weren't exactly on time to receive their speech, to deliver it, he was irate with them. And it was really interesting to see how they would answer his questions just so carefully and so precisely. And they were being ordered, commanded. And they were being good soldiers. No one in the world could have convinced me that that was actually occurring until I saw it myself.
Then more evidence arrived attached to an email, some of the curriculum of the Mexican American Studies.
We debated for a long time whether we wanted to put that curriculum up or not. And we had all decided we weren't going to. We thought it was inflammatory, and we didn't want to enrage people. We didn't want it to appeal to a certain audience, which is terrible, but we were being very judgmental at that point. And we knew that one look at that curriculum and people would die. So we wanted to put it in context until we began to realize there was no context. that was all there was, and it was even worse.
Another longtime educator, former president of the Teachers Union in Alaska, and a registered Democrat, Richard Kronberg, has looked at the Mexican American Studies as it is taught at TUSD and has come to some harsh conclusions.
And it's being taught in Raza classes through what's called critical race theory or critical pedagogy, which is the same way of teaching that's being done in Nicaragua and other communist-controlled countries. It's Marxist-driven. It's all about opposition to capitalism. It's all about the class struggle, and it's all about looking through everything through the lens of race, so that kids essentially learn that they're victims of oppression. I've looked at a final that was done about 3 years ago in that American history class. And there were all sorts of questions about oppression. There were all sorts of questions about the imaginary nation of Aztlan. There is nothing about the American Revolution. There is nothing about the ratification of the U.S. Constitution. The only thing there is about learning about the settlers and the colonizing of the United States was the section on pilgrims and the plague, where the pilgrims are supposedly genocidal fanatics. I mean, that's what these kids are being taught.
Kronberg also sees a University of Arizona connection to the program. In fact, he saw it again with his own eyes Tuesday night, April 26th, when some students took over a TUSD school board meeting so that the board wouldn't vote to make Mexican American Studies an elective.
Wasn't in the boardroom, but I was looking from outside, and what I had a crystal clear view of was Professor Roberto Rodriguez from the Mexican American Studies Department at U of A standing on a table in the boardroom directing the students to what to do. I mean, to me, that's child abuse.
And the abusers reportedly choose some of their victims carefully.
It is abuse. It is abuse. And they find these kids. I had asked one of the teachers, a fellow Democrat like myself, asked him, how do they get these kids to take these classes? This teacher has a great deal of experience in the counseling end of education. And he said to me that what they do is they go around and talk to the kids, and they find the kids that are most vulnerable, most willing to, in need of joining a group, and more susceptible to suggestion. And that's how they bring those kids into the class, and they begin the indoctrination. And I can't believe I'm calling a classroom a place of indoctrination, but it is.
And Lori says it's intimidation. That's the tactic they use against other teachers and staff that dare to speak out against Mexican American studies.
We've talked with one teacher who started the school year, small, petite woman, very petite, started the school year weighing 90 pounds, ended the school year weighing 70 pounds. She was so distressed by the harassment and the abuse she had received. She still will not reveal who she is, and she won't go public with her story.
But wait, there's even more great news. Even if the school board votes to make Mexican American Studies an elective instead of a core history class, as expected, and even if the state of Arizona's investigation finds that the class formerly known as Raza Studies is against state law, as expected, the Tucson Unified School District is not out of the communist woods yet.
And they hope to introduce social justice into all curriculum so that all curriculum reflects reflects and addresses the inequities in our capitalist system and brings about a transformation.
Lori says it all started when Congressman Raul Grijalva, who's now co-chairman of the Progressive Caucus, was on the TUSD school board.
And he and his friends were dedicated to a certain ideology, and so things just kind of naturally evolved, and now it's a very large chunk of the district.
And while Lori admits that when she was younger she would have embraced social justice being taught in school, she's now come to understand that true social justice means something very different than Marxism or socialism.
If people want to see true social justice and not economic social justice, but where we all really start to take care of each other, that would be the first step. Let's redefine social justice and decide that we're actually going to be a part of it.
And sometimes the best way that you help someone is to point out a lie, stand for the truth, no matter what the personal cost is, because it is all about the kids, or it should be.